Liquid Amber is a poetry hub. It's a place for reading poetry, listening to poetry, sharing poetry all round. We do publish, we run Zoom events, we run an annual prize. So there's always lots happening. And also, I'd like to thank the organisers of Sonic Poetry Festival that's currently rocking in Naarm this week. Or this month, I should say. Poetry Month is Sonic Poetry. So you might be coming along tonight, having heard about us through Sonic Poetry. So tonight, just to give you a little bit of an overview for the evening, we've taken as our provocation, if you like, or inspiration perhaps, we've taken Simone Weil's words that attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. Which is a great line, and absolutely unmixed attention could be understood as prayer. So I guess, we've really riffed on that in our different work and certainly in our lives. What does it mean to actually pay close attention? And how do various contemplative traditions or wisdom traditions nourish and reinforce that ability to look closely, to actually be in the present moment? And how might the fruits of contemplation, however experienced in your life, be expressed across the wide possibilities of poetic language? So, there's a few biggies to throw into the mix for the evening. So tonight, Tony, Cathy and I are going to read from our recent books that really work across these kind of questions and fields. Each of us will say a few words, I think, about these questions, the relationship between poetry and contemplative practice. So I'm really aware that we have a mixed audience tonight. Mixed in what way, you might say? Well, I reckon there are going to be folk in the room who would put up their hand as meditators, and they've come because they've heard about us through either Tony and my tradition or through Cathy's. So they're coming from different contemplative traditions. And of course, I can see a lot of familiar faces in the room. There are others who are putting up their hands as poets. And you've come along to see what the contemplators do on the other side of the fence. And then there'll be a number of you who straddle the two categories, a bit like we readers tonight. And there's that other very rich component of the audience, those of you whom I'm sure are just interested to listen and to think about this topic, and to hear the reading about it. Anyway, so I'm very aware that we come from different directions, and so some aspects of tonight are likely to be more or less familiar to you. But to get us into the zone, into the space of poetry and contemplation, I thought it would be a nice idea to start with a few moments of breathing quietly together. So we're going to do this little experiment, preceded by the sound of the meditation bell. And also I'm going to read a poem which is about inviting the bell before meditation. So, the two strands are weaving together. In the Plum Village Zen tradition that Tony and I practice in, we talk about inviting a bell. So when I'm saying bell, you might even think of it as bowl. You can sort of see this little fellow, and here is the inviter, the thing that actually comes into contact with it. So we talk about inviting, and I really love that verb in this context, because it isn't about striking the bell or whacking it as hard as you can to get a good sound out of it. It's about inviting. It's not about imposing my will. Hey, bell, come on, make the right sound. It's about making a space, if you like, in which the sound of the bell might even speak, if you want to see it like that. So in doing that, we allow ourselves to come into a space of reflection, to invite the bell, to listen, It's a kind of organic mechanism, Deleuzian if you want to get into it, an organic mechanism of person inviting the bell, the wooden inviter itself, and the bell or the bowl. So it almost becomes an organic continuity. And in doing that, we come into this space of reflection. So if you're comfortable, I'm going to invite you to find a comfortable spot to sit in your chairs. We're all in chairs tonight. Put your 2 feet flat on the floor. Find a sort of central space, a space of anchoring, if you like. And if you're comfortable to close your eyes, please do so. It just makes it a little bit easier to zone out of the busy day and come into this little space for us. So if you could do that, I'm going to start out by reading a poem, and then I will begin a few minutes of silence with 3 sounds of the bell, and then I'll finish it with 2 sounds of the bell, so you know that you can open your eyes then. This poem is called Invite the Bell. Heart asks a question of wood, and so wood approaches metal, bowing deeply. Together they prise open a space in the world, unfurling into sound, calling quietly, we might arrive in this clearing, apart yet also familiar. Ears, skin, pulse, vital and waiting, ready for what can be spoken and what can't. Ripples, reverberating, my sternum, your breath, ours, what I have longed to hear, whether I knew it or not, travels surprising through runnels of air to find me here, learning to listen, leaning in these wide arms. Come in from the day, all the busyness. Just come in to a quiet space. Watch your breathing. Don't try to change it, just watch it. Is it shallow? Is it deep? Is your in-breath longer than your out-breath or the same? Come into your breath, inhabiting your body, and the air of the world becomes the breath of the body, and out again. Oh, welcome back into the Zoom room. I hope you enjoyed that. If you're not familiar with doing meditation, it's really rather wonderful. Anyway, let's move in now out of that space into hearing some poetry. And our first reader for tonight is Tony Mills. Tony lives in the Southern Highlands of New South Wales. He spent most of his working life as a public health worker in the areas of physical and mental health and well-being. He now volunteers as a hospital chaplain. Tony's book, The Miracle of Days from Ginninderra Press, was published in 2022. Tony is a Dharma teacher in the Plum Village tradition.
So thank you very much, Rose, and welcome everyone. I suppose thinking about what contemplation and poetry means to me, I guess the two words that really stick out for me when I think about contemplation or meditation and what they mean to me is relationship and connection. So I guess for a lot of us at some time in our lives, we feel very disconnected from either people around us or the world around us. And I certainly felt like that 30 years ago when I began this practice. And I think, for me, learning what we call in the tradition that Rose mentioned, the Plum Village Zen tradition, appropriate attention, which is also more commonly known as mindfulness, which is about presence, as Simone Weil mentioned, this sense of presence as an offering or a gift, the presence of the world as a gift, the presence of ourselves as a gift to ourselves and the world. So in the tradition of meditation that I'm in, our body and minds are directed to one point, which is the present moment. And there's also a sense of a connection with concentration when there's mindfulness, or when you direct your attention towards one point, a sense of concentration. And also out of that concentration and mindfulness, there's an opportunity for a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world. And so for me, sort of the act of writing poetry is an attempt to describe my own experience of presence, whether that's presence to myself, to others, to the world, something in the environment, but having a deeper sense of connection with the environment around me and the people around me. So, and actually feeling connected and having a relationship. So that's what I guess contemplation has meant to me. And hopefully the poems that I read tonight will give a sense of that connection. So I'd like to start with, I guess, a poem that actually is about this sense of becoming still from a mind that's fairly disorganized, I guess, or is fraught with thought. So this it's a short poem called great wind, bright moon. Thought enters vast mind's long sweeping bay, like a mocking wind that piles up sea, rocks a buoy belling, churns ashore click-clacking pebbles wearing thin as water. From a worldless world, skiffs of moonlight slip their moorings, tacking hiss and whine of wind, dim its roar to a measured breath of rest. The next poem I'd like to read is called Gift. Gift. Slight, flush-cheeked, weighted by ritual, her hands budding with loaves. Suddenly stall behind the counter as I enter, shreds of light from the window, flour, salt, water, visible through her skin. Noise sifts in from the open door, wind strumming, hubbub of waking cars. I lean in to smell the warmth, the leavened mystery, stilled in its transformation. I choose a round ribbed loaf, memory thick crust, tongue and lips buttered joy in a long forgotten kitchen. Wrapped in my hands, I walk into the scrubbed street, surrendering to morning light, silently saying the word bread. This next poem is called Mob Bishop's Point. It's a place where the Manning River meets the sea, east of Taree. And it's a place that for the last 40 or 50 years I've visited as part of a family holiday. So this is called Mud Bishop's Point. Late afternoon sky, cloudless and unending. Sway and ripple of curlews, feeling the weight of earth in their limbs, descend to mud flats. Day becoming distant from itself, like the echo in our breath, or light receding from wasting stars. Heaped hills carved by shifting cloud shadows, wind rocking grass stalks on dunes, pushing at the river's mouth. Fishes and their children at the caress of tide shift, rods propped in sand, slack lines twirling, their old four-wheel drives like beached rib cages. Some stand around a circle burn of driftwood, renewing faith in each other in a space behind the world. This next poem is called Weights and Measures. Sorry if you just bear with me while I try and find it here. So this is a poem called Weights and Measures. Winter, its mean insufficiencies and dead weight, sentence of deepening darkness. Blasts of wind stink and stomp, crush birdsong, tremor tree roots. Magpies slide twirl on frosted grass, cobweb lace tangled with insect ghosts. My dogs huddle at the back door, cold licking fur, their life a whimper and sad droop. Falling into the wide windows, granite light and drizzle. Dead leaves circle in packs, racing north with the wind. Mind's slow heaviness and fogged voice, body on edge, deep in witness to time. On the street, shadows swallow late light, car doors open and close, footsteps scrape and shuffle. Faint tug at the door, your voice swings into the house, rises over the gloomy tilt of earth, empties a backpack of discoveries. I'm just wondering, Rose, do I have time for another, or have I've run out of time?
You do. You have 4 more minutes, Tony.
Oh, okay.
Whatever's good.
Okay. So perhaps the last song, one I'll read in this time is called "The Dream Song of the Zebra Finch." This is a poem written in memory of a friend of mine, Fran Hayes, who was a great social justice advocate, union organizer, and feminist and friend for over 50 years, who recently passed away. So, Dream Song of the Zebra Finch. Birds still at centre of seeding grass, music on their minds, rehearse their parents' lesson, composing songs, choreograph a pivoting dance, their swinging bodies turn left then right. Light from the overarching sky caught in their colours, chestnut feather sheen, red beak shine, orange splashed cheeks, halo of yellow pollen. When she developed Parkinson's disease, my friend's life became a slow drag, knock of bone on bone. She woke groggy and disoriented, deprived of her name. Voice, a wind-chopped sound, tightness gripping her face, mind patched with shadow. Until a bird danced and sang into her, became a door to a way out. She learnt to conjure new tunes, dreaming out unconstrained song. Feet put down in pollen entered the full dimension of herself, an inflaming sway and ripple of rhythm thrumming her body. And if I have time for just one short one, this poem's called Crossing Bundanoon Creek After Rain for my granddaughter. You were all breath and nature without a quarrelsome bone, simple as blue sky, lacking the wounded eyes we all have. Wild hair lit with rain, face diffusing light upon the landscape. Muddy water swirling your bare feet in the icy creek, you stopped still as a dragonfly, then lifted your head, interrogating air disturbed. Downstream, flocks of ducks settling on a pool amid an amphitheatre of crowded white-trunk eucalyptus, roots easing their way into valley's core. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Tony. How absolutely beautiful. That was really, really inspiring to listen to. So I'm going to read some poems to you now. Many of you know who I am, but I think there's some folk who I don't know, so I reckon you won't know me either. I'm the founding editor at Liquid Amber Press. I'm also an academic here at Victoria University, and a poet myself, and my most recent collection was remarkable as breathing. So you can see how I've got into this style of writing or interest in writing. Remarkable as breathing is actually dedicated to the compassionate ocean sangha, which is the community that I practice in. And just very quickly to say a little bit about how I see these two strands of poetry and contemplation coming together. In many ways, increasingly, I've found that they are almost indistinguishable, that both poetry and contemplation focus on the small things, on the present moment, as Tony was saying, to be actually alert and awake in order to notice and to listen, not already to have something sorted out that you're going to say, etc. So I think, my previous book was called Increments of the Everyday, and I think that's led me to focus on the ordinary things in life and in the world, and also in the natural world as well. And for me personally, I think coming to a meditation practice really made sense of a lot of threads in my life. I was very fortunate to have a psychoanalysis in my 20s, in that business of just sitting and letting things rise, started way back there, that the intellect is not the only tool we have for understanding ourselves and the world and our relationship to it. And of course, poetry, both as an intellectual pursuit, an academic pursuit, but also as a practice, seem to just really tie in so neatly with a meditation practice. So let me read you a few poems, not a few books, from Remarkable as Breathing, to give you a bit of an idea of where I'm coming from. So this first poem is called, what do you know, Meditation. Like a leaf that finds at last the direction of the river, its brown flecked movement, so too a mind might rest on this narrow ribbon of breath, might tremble in the particularity of this channel, its swoop and reach, its prospect of being still. This confluence, where a world gathers in, finding quiet corridors of nostril, lung, delta of artery, the deep-throated story of pulse, this place of watching. A quiet of hiatus where wavelets pause a while, hovering, suspended across sand, as though there might be nothing more. But this time, at least, the vastness of what tugs. It turns breath into ozone and tide into ocean. This next poem is called Semazin. The Semazin, or the Sema, is the person who is dancing, and you might think of them as the whirling dervish, the person who spins. It's a meditative practice. I hadn't realized that to the extent that it is until I saw a presentation, a performance of this last year. So if you can imagine those men, they are always men in those kind of white dresses, a tall hat which indicates a sort of ego that's being left behind, and they're turning on one foot, and spinning. There's the sound of a kind of chanting, there's a musical sound, and that's what's happening. So previously I'd thought of the whirling dervish as some kind of thing that happened for tourists or something. But when I actually saw it and did some research into it, I realized it was a really very deep and beautiful practice of finding center and of linking earth to sky through body, and sound and music. So let me read this to you. It's in triplets, so lines of 3, and I guess if you were looking at it, you would sort of see that kind of turning on the toe, on the foot, as the dancer spins around. Semazen. My heart is open, and with each pulse I am learning, listening to a wisdom that comes from the past, and listening to what can't quite be heard, the hum of the world, humming. My right foot propels me, it turns on the axis of everything, turning. Hope fills the white folds of our skirts, and now unfolding, we are lotus, unfolding into air, minarets of joy into the blue, we are rising, one hand open to heaven, the other tipped toward earth. We are trees, our roots are in soil, while branches unfurl, dancing, dancing. Beyond the narrow tenements of ourselves, we are whirling leaves in a river, whirling, whirling. I see what anchors, I see what moves and shifts. I hear where music leads me. I am part of this whirling world, its risings, subsidings, turning, turning. We are turning. And this poem, a little bit of a change of feel, is called From My Writing Desk, because what does the poet do but look out their window at the world out there and, think about, how to talk about the world. And in this particular poem, I guess, I feel like I'm being talked back at. So I'm using italics throughout the poem to sort of indicate the voice that comes from, this not passive or separate natural world. From my writing desk. Just outside my window, birds of paradise cluster, raising the brilliance of their heads high over the shrubbery, above the lavender's quivering tides. Green and rose and mauve, their gaudy crowns flicker orange, then azure, arcing into morning light. Look at you, they smile, calling to me, trying to find us with your words, your careful lists of colours, the way you sketch the cradle of our leaves, bulrushes. Slow down, look at us. Without a word, we are reaching for the simplicity of this ordinary day, its beauty, its remarkable brevity. Come, slide out through the window. Become garden. Breathe in orange and green and azure. Raise the living bones of your arms into the horizon of our morning. I was duly chastened. Okay, I'm going to finish with a poem that's called Ways to Rest. This poem actually was inspired, we went to hear Handel's Messiah, a wonderful Christmas treat always, and that line that stuck in my mind, and ye shall find rest unto your souls, which of course is a quote from the Gospels. But it got me thinking about what rest unto my soul, whatever that might mean, actually means. So this is a kind of series of different kinds of rest. And of course, in a meditative practice, the idea of coming into a nourishing stillness, it is a kind of rest. We have a a total relaxation practice, for instance, which is truly wonderful. You know, how to find that still point, as T.S. Eliot might have put it. Anyway, so there's a couple of sections in this. I'll try to indicate it with my voice, and you'll hear hear me riffing on different ideas of rest. Shelter here in the angle of a shoulder, where lips are soft on hair, and a song buzzes in my sternum, in yours, and the house of a body, bones, breast, opens to support another body, its fragility, its muscled endurance, this platform from which to face out into beauty's thickets, those pathless bewilderments, or to slip into sleep's release, the shadow halls of dreaming. Here is love's license to let go, to offer, to swoon. But lay down the day's tools, knowing that whatever it was possible to do was done, that the works of hands and thought and heart will continue to unfold into other moments, other days. But now the ease is utter, the sustenance of what fills this momentary being brimful again with what is joyful. Imagine heart's hiatus, its lift, as when in an energy of notes, sound pauses and breath is suspended until music flows again. The waterfall re-entered. Sitting through what remains, this seedbed of what comes next, this mud that yields the lotus, feeding the spring of everything. Out of the swing of the world's wide currents, this expansive refuge, as a sparkling river slips by the bows on a lazy day, and fingers like thoughts trail idly in water, nowhere in particular to go. So too, love's open-handed gift, a flicker of leaves, respite of deep shade, soul's own food, cicadas in the summer night, stillness drawn close, a whispered invitation to settle, to rest. Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to ask Cathy Altmann to read. Hi, Cathy. Great to have you here. I'm just going to introduce you. Cathy's first collection, Circumnavigation, was published by Poetica Christi in 2014 and won the Anne Elder Award. And her most recent book is Stars Like Salt, which we were absolutely rapt to publish this year. It's a truly beautiful book. Her poems have appeared in journals, anthologies, and on Melbourne trains. She holds a master's in creative writing on poetry and cancer and teaches English and Latin. Cathy practices in the Christian faith. Thank you, Cathy.
Thanks so much. It's been really rich thinking about this and preparing, and the fact that we've prepared independently, and yet I can see quite a few correspondences, so that's a delight. So I'll talk about paying attention in prayer to the world and to writing a poem. Firstly, prayer. My life has been about unlearning the first 20 or so years of self-judgment and criticism, and instead being connected to the vine. And it was Jesus' words, "I am the true vine, and you are the branches," that went right through me when I first heard them, and they still speak to me of connection and rest. That word that Rose just used. It's about growth, I think, for me, without striving. So prayer is that place of resting in the vine. The anxious hamster wheel in my head can maybe roll to a halt. Often I'm just saying, "Here I am," to God. I experience being known and loved as I am. And then I find that what's really going on wells up in me so that I can attend to it. Might be grief, fear, hope, whatever. And it's also a dialogue, I guess, a listening to what God might be saying. Tony used the word invitation. And for me, it's hearing God's invitation to something that would be life-giving. Secondly, paying attention to the world. If I'm connected to the vine, then there's space for me to wonder and delight. And Rose, I loved your comment about the world talking back to me, and that's what I experience. A spider web looping from the gum tree to the letterbox. Birds, the forks in the tree speak to me. And this happened especially in 2022 when I had long COVID and could do so little, so that leaves, spider webs, grains of sand and the wind made their way into the poems in Stars Like Salt. And third, paying attention as we write a poem. If I'm connected to the vine, I can be less self-critical, and there's space for me to play and see what comes. I tried writing my second book in particular out of a almost unconscious place of play, and that was quite liberating. I ran a poetry workshop just on the weekend for a few women, and we agreed that poetry is a way of paying attention to emotion as well. And, you know, some of them would never normally write poetry, but we discovered that the deep things that happen in our lives or have happened to us that we just don't have time to dwell on in the day-to-day. Poetry can be a place to put those. I try to feel the emotion and let it inform tone and rhythm, but not spell it out on the page too much. So poetry is a gift. It somehow transforms the experience to put it into words on a page and turn it into a work of art or something that can communicate with others. And then, of course, anyone who's tried to write knows, or read, I guess, knows that it's impossible to do without paying attention to the words, the sounds, where they're placed on the line, and what is wanting to be said. And then that is a delight in itself. So I'll read a few poems now. This first one is from my first book. It's called Attend. The sky is dappled grey. Its soft structure lifts above me. The sun, going down behind the shops and houses, tints it yellow. How much of my life have I missed already? I have barely noticed how the moon is fuller than the tiny fingernail of 2 nights ago, how the sun hits the land on an angle now at autumn, and winter will come, and spring again. How this earth is somersaulting away from the sun towards night and wheeling through space. How my daughter's face is turned to me now, and I have already missed what she is saying. And the next poem is from Stars Like Salt. Thank you, Liquid Amber. This is called The Web. Drawn outside, I find single strands of spider web in the olive tree. They flash an erratic semaphore in the morning sun. Each spans a gap from leaf to stem. None makes the expected web. Are they first drafts, flimsy lines left in the branches, the night's work? I cannot read them, yet each morning they adorn the tree, flicker between light and invisibility. My daughter joins me, and as my words create a string clogged with grit, she brushes the tree. Too late, the threads unmoored stream toward me, silver filaments illuminating what I have failed to see. And then this one is from my second book, Things We Know Without Naming. Again, memories and images, I guess. It's called Blood. There were 3 rhythmic waves. The first brought her bursting out of the vagina, all bundled slippery limbs and a face like a red rag. She spilt the sound of her life all over that iron bed. The second, suspended from the monkey bars while the big boys pulled down her pants till she swung her foot and connected with teeth. She knew the power of pain in the playground. The boy backwards scrambling like a crab. She kept smelling the metal on her hands. The third, pushing past her sisters into puberty, the unwanted blood. She crept round the side of the house to the incinerator, rubbed her fingers in the charcoal, kissed them hard. And this next one is that sort of unconscious playing, I guess, with images. And this was inspired by the double spiral staircase in Graz, which is a village in Austria. Graz. I want to worship my blue god with her hem sodden at old Graz. I want to climb her stairs, intone prayers. The stone will be cold in the winding staircase, the steps splaying outwards from the centre point, light from a window. There are no feet, no voices, just the stairs. Let's check how we're going. Okay. Okay, I'll read this one and then one last one. Petticoat. Again, this kind of came from an unconscious place of play with words and whatever came. Petticoat, 1968. Always the sound of rain, a finger on ivory, the spilt petticoat jettisoned at the last, the trail of oil salt-slicked and brassy. Hardly tasting her, he retreats, the slow unwind, trickling. A fire huffs in the grate, smoke, embers, all down the years, the grandparents' farm, a framed moth, the smell of frangipani, something plucked from the mouth, the cold rump of the chicken, bones beneath shiny, puckered skin, the red enamel flesh of chilies, the sizzle of oil under lights, February speech-making by his grandfather, all stuffed into his pockets, sage and ash, bonfire and penance. And perhaps I'll end with the language of trees, which did come out of my experience in long COVID. I'm trying to learn the language of trees. The grammar is looser than Latin. They linger in groups, like my sisters, understanding without words. At times they murmur my mother soothing a newborn, or they fizz with the effervescence of a wave reaching shore. Their limbs gesture to me, look. They show me what has been done on the scarred wax tablet of their trunk. Then they stream toward me with a voice like rushing waters, holy as fire, cold and sweet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cathy. Wow, that was really, really beautiful. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, everybody, for coming tonight and sharing in this really wonderful celebration for us, I guess, of really being able to share our poetry about contemplation and finding those confluences of various kinds. So maybe just in the couple of minutes left, maybe we might all each have a last poem to read. Tony, is there something you'd like to read?
Thanks, Rose. I forgot to mention that the poems I've read so far this evening don't come from my book. They actually are poems I've written in the last year or so.
Newies, I thought that, yeah.
So I will read a poem from the book. It's called A Wedding. Immersed in the union of morning light and warm sea air, the church, albescent, leans towards a marbled bay. Along a rim of shoreline, knotted reflections of resting boats, brief hopes of little waves. Today, among family and friends, I stand around a pool, drink in hand, feel the benevolence of my pulse ticking in its case. Overheard voices, the price of houses, the names of new great nieces and nephews. Somehow, floating in like driftwood from death's ocean, my father's voice, sounding among undulating talk, prompts me to wish my niece the ordinary day's wonder and a heart able to endure the world adrift. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Beautiful. Cathy, have you got a lucky last, an encore tucked away in there?
Yes. I thought I'll read The Summer Day by Mary Oliver because she puts it so beautifully.
Mary Oliver, yeah.
And it fits perfectly. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
Oh, wow. Thank you, Cathy. Do we ever grow tired of that one? It's absolutely brilliant and beautifully read too. I'm just going to, it's a hard act to follow. That's a toughie. But I'm just going to close the evening with the last poem in Remarkable, really as a tribute to my two communities who are here tonight, which is to say my poetry community and my meditation community. So this is for you guys. And it's called The Possible Sound of All of It. We are all daily dealers in the business of wisdom, that grand and very ordinary lift of the heart when attention might settle long enough to glimpse just how things might actually be. How even what is small and particular can in fact be a portal, the longed-for doorway festooned with shadow, soft flickers of light. It leads right into the welcoming arms of everything else. How some things might hover and dart, damselflies electric on the very horizons of seeing. And how I am largely content to sit, quietly watching a wash of cloud finding shape, dissolving, impelled by invisible bellows of air. This wide confluence, this flow of things. Your face, the heft of trees, raw blue of sky. The possible sound of all of it, singing together. Thank you very much, folks. Thanks so much, Tony and Cathy, for coming, and thank you everybody for being with us. Pauline, I think you could, pop back into the chat the fact that Liquid Amber is doing stuff. We've got another Zoom coming up in September, so we would love to see more of you. And if you're interested, in this kind of poetry and contemplation, let us know, and maybe we'll do it again. Okay, thanks everybody. Lovely to see you tonight. Good night.